Thousands of young men and women answered the call to serve their country in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now, as they get a little older, more and more of them are looking to serve in elected office. One of them is Terrence O'Rourke, a Democratic candidate for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st District. Terrence, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time. So you work in Rochester, which is a blue-collar city, a blue-collar town. It voted for Barack Obama in 2012 and for Donald Trump in 2016. Some of your fellow candidates kind of don't like to address this topic. They're not too interested in why that happened. But for you, this is a big issue. Why are working-class voters abandoning the Democratic Party like this? Well,
I think it's because they feel that the Democratic Party doesn't care about them. Even though if you look at the Democratic platform, you look at with candidates like I'm talking about, we're talking about those pocketbook issues. But I think what has happened is we stopped speaking the language that they understand. We stopped talking strict jobs, good home, education for your children, and health care. The same things FDR was talking about during the 30s and the 40s. I think if we return to that, we stick to those values, we'll regain those voters that we've lost.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's enough? I mean, because Democrats do talk about those things, and yet these voters, in some ways, migrated to Trump because of this projection of strength. Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I think you're right. And there, there's the wrong and strong can sometimes win out over right but wishy-washy, and I think sometimes the Democratic Party does get that image that we're not going to be there at the end for you. Republicans, when they take a position, they stick with it. I've been fascinated during the course of this year when the tax bill that came through Washington, D.C., where there was sort of this odd outrage on the left or in the Democratic Party about what they're doing. I don't understand how there's outrage. The Republicans said exactly what they were going to do, and they went and did it. I think when you see on the Democrat side, when we get in office, we don't follow through. I think a great example is President Obama. One of my great disappointments is he didn't end the war in Iraq. He didn't end the war in Afghanistan. That was something those of us who voted for him expected to happen. He didn't close Guantanamo Bay. After 8 years, you're left wondering, what was 2008 about?
On this appeal to nostalgia, one more question there. Do you think that, hearkening back to, okay, this working class past, if you want to think of it that way, do you risk alienating some voting groups within the Democratic Party who look at that past and say, well, we don't like that, perhaps LGBTQ voters, minority voters?
Except that the issues are the same for everybody. Everyone needs a good job. Everyone needs a roof over their head. Everyone needs clothes on the back. Everyone wants their kid to get a great, top-quality education. So they cut across all racial lines, class lines.
Yeah. I was intrigued by something you said at a forum in Manchester recently, back in December, that is, quote, if we're seen as the party of the addict and not the taxpayer footing the bill for rehab, we lose, end quote. Shouldn't the Democratic Party want to be the party of the people struggling in recovery?
Well, see, and that's another issue that I think, from my point of view, as a prosecutor at the state and the federal level, what I see not only are people who are addicted to drugs, committing crimes and struggling life, I see the victims of those people. And until you make that decision that you want to enter rehab and to straighten out, my job is to protect the rest of the society from you. Because I've seen the mothers, the grandmothers, the fathers who've had their bank accounts wiped out. I've seen the family heirlooms that have been taken and pawned, gone forever. So I think we shouldn't lose that voice, that there are victims of these victims. And one of my jobs and one of the jobs of a government is to protect society from these folks until they decide that they're going to take personal responsibility.
What does New Hampshire need to do differently to address the opioid crisis?
Well, again, I think we need to take a step back. New Hampshire is a victim of the international opioid trade. New Hampshire isn't going to be going over to Afghanistan and stopping this from coming in here. So it's an international issue. It needs to focus on Afghanistan, where 90% of the world's opium is produced. And the latest reports had the eradication rate at 0%. So that means that's all being grown, all being brought to market. None of that opium is being used for legitimate purposes. So all that opium is going into the illicit drug trade. So what I would propose is, let's focus on stopping the opium from ever leaving Afghanistan. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by ending our military operation in Afghanistan and refocusing our efforts on, first of all, drug eradication, stopping the drug lords, but more importantly, going right to those opium farmers and simply at first buying the crops from them and eventually investing the time and money to lead them into better pursuits.
Do you think that the public has in some ways almost wanted to move past Iraq and Afghanistan, that they just almost don't want to talk about it anymore? And yet for you, a veteran, this is something, you think about it a lot, I'm sure.
I do. And again, it goes back to the fact that so few people serve in the military nowadays. And it doesn't affect most people in their daily life. They think it doesn't affect them, and they may not know somebody who's a veteran or has served in the military. But It's a great drain on our national resources. It's a great drain on our standing internationally, and also the fact that this is money and effort that could be used in other places. And neither of these wars have any purpose anymore, to the extent they ever had a purpose. And no one can tell me why we're still in Afghanistan. And I don't understand it, and I think it's time to end it.
There's potentially another government shutdown looming this coming week, and there's the deal that's on the table from the president is essentially give me the money to build a wall on our southern border, and I will offer amnesty to roughly 2 million or so younger undocumented immigrants. If you're in Congress right now, do you take that deal to ensure that those people have a path to citizenship?
The wall isn't a new idea. We know that we've already built portions of this wall. It wouldn't work. It's a huge, unbelievable waste of money, but I think ultimately it probably wouldn't be built. So I say, why not make the deal right now? Because the DACA folks, these dreamers, we need to protect them because we're all dreamers essentially. Our sons and daughters, our grandchildren, dreamers. So sure, given the wall, it's not going to happen.
Is there any single issue worth shutting down the government over?
When I was working the federal government as a prosecutor, I was there during the whole sequestration, the shutdown fights, and that's no way to run a government. We as Democrats are a governing party. We believe in government. We believe in how good it does, what the good effects it has on people's lives. So if you're going to shut down the government, it better be for a really good reason, and you better be able to articulate that reason. And if you do not get what you want, you got to keep going. You can't give up.
You said that Carol Shea Porter was one of the inspirations for your entry into politics, and in fact, if I remember correctly, you said you were overseas serving in the military when you first heard her name and kind of saw or heard of her victory in 2006. And of course, everyone in your primary is quick to pay homage to Ms. Shea Porter, but how would you be different in Congress from Carol Shea Porter?
Well, I think I would probably focus a little bit on different issues because of my background. I think particularly on foreign policy, I've taken some stronger positions than anyone else in this field, particularly when what's going on right now with the Syrian Kurds, what the Turkish government is doing to them. I think it's wrong. I think America should be on the side of the Kurdish people. I haven't heard anyone else address that, but that's something that I would focus on. And also in terms of the military, the budget is way bigger than it needs to be. It's even getting bigger. I don't think anyone... and either party is holding them to account. The generals, the admirals, they walk in with all the medals on their chests and they get what they want. No, people need to be in there really digging through this budget, and that's something that I would focus on.
You mentioned you want support for certain people in the Middle East, but how does the country extricate itself from those problems and yet try to solve them at the same time? Well,
what we need to do is remember who our friends are. And the Kurdish people have been a friend of the American people for a long time, in Iraq and in Syria. And we have to also remember what this country has stood for. We've stood for the belief in self-determination. At the end of World War I, that's something Woodrow Wilson talked about. And the Kurdish people have the right to self-determination. They have the right to their own country. And that's something we should go back to. I don't know where that got lost in our history.
Let's focus on the Russia investigation for a little bit. There's no question when you have campaign and administration officials who are making plea deals, this is very serious. But there's very much a partisan divide over how this is being seen. When we have some people saying this is bigger and worse than Watergate and other people saying fake news, how do we ever get back to a place as Americans where we can agree on a single point of sort of what's right and what's wrong?
Well, thankfully we have the greatest judicial system in the world. We can talk about this and that particular judge, particular cases, but no other country has this system. So there's an investigation going on. I think it's unfortunate. It's sort of unfortunate we're talking about it right now while it's still happening, and in most normal cases, the public's not going to know about it until we proffer charges, but I mean, then it's investigating a presidential administration. But Robert Mueller he's going to make his case. He's already charged some folks, as you said. He's gotten cooperation. So I would just ask people, let the system play itself out. Because these charges against whoever they end up being are going to have to be brought to a grand jury. That person can be indicted. They're going to get all the protections that the accused gets, and we're going to have a judicial process. And that way, that's totally transparent. And then everyone they'll see the evidence, they'll hear their evidence, and a jury will ultimately get to decide unless obviously somebody pleads guilty. So just let the process work itself out.
Do you see yourself as someone in Congress pounding the table saying we need to impeach this president?
I think right now we have such a strong head of the investigation with Robert Mueller. I want to see him finish his investigation. And we don't know what his goal is in terms of ultimately getting inside the administration, the president, the vice president, whether he's seeking to proffer charges or to make a report to the Congress. So he seems to be moving rapidly. As you see, he's flipping witnesses. So I think there's plenty of time to sit back and let him finish his investigation.
All right, and real quick, a Super Bowl prediction from you?
You know, I predict, we don't know. It's whether good Nick Foles shows up or bad Nick Foles. That's the game within the game. But I think that if good Nick Foles shows up, it's going to be another 3-point Patriots victory.
All right. Terrence O'Rourke, we'll see you out there on the campaign trail. Thanks for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.